Jesse Marsch has been fired. Bad news for him, but is it good news for Leeds? Well, Jon Mackenzie is going to tell us all about why it didn't work for Jesse Marsch, and why they wanted him, and why it didn't work at Leeds. What's going on with this?
I think to start answering this, we just need to think about how Leeds set up under Jesse Marsch. So this is a game from Nottingham Forest at the weekend. This is the game that saw him eventually fired. 4-2-3-1 on paper, but the important thing to remember is for Jesse Marsch, narrowness is really important. And that is important for two reasons. That is both in possession and out of possession as well. So what you would usually see in these sorts of situations is Leeds with the ball at the back, passing it around like this. And what they're going to be looking for is a direct pass into the middle, this area here where there's lots of players around.
Yeah.
Now the idea is to be really direct, have a few passes around here, pull the defence around just because you're so quick and direct, and then generate this sort of scoring chance. But if the ball is lost, which is likely to happen if you're playing the ball into a congested area, then you need to have your players around. So that's where the narrowness is important out of possession as well. So then what you can do is you can fall on the ball. And again, because the opposition is all out of kilter, what you can do is win the ball back again and generate dangerous chances from this chaotic game.
So you're creating chances through the kind of
chaos,
press, right? So then to me that looks like it lacks a lot of width, especially in these, well, obviously in the wide areas, the width is. Do the fullbacks push up? Do they leave themselves exposed on the break? Why isn't this working if the idea makes sense?
I think that the fullbacks obviously do push up, but they're mainly about being able to just keep possession. And again, once they get the ball back, often it'll be trying to get it back into the middle. And Jesse Marsch talks about, we play in the middle because the goal's in the middle. But actually, the pressing aspect is important as well because Leeds are so aggressive, they're going to try and push forward. They're going to leave space in behind, and often the fullbacks have to jump up in pressing moments. And again, this leaves these areas quite exposed as well. And what we've often seen happening is opposition players getting the ball in these wider areas, and because Leeds are then he's offside. But because Leeds are then struggling to get back, usually this player may have jumped up. You then have seen a lot of chances being generated by these balls across the goal, and then someone at the back post jumping in as well.
He's offside as well.
Yeah, well, when the ball was played, he was onside. He's actually moved.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. That's excellent. Right, so it doesn't work. Are they creating chances? Because Marsch kept saying that the performances were good, but they weren't finishing their chances. But they were lacking Bamford for a long time is one thing. Is it simply not finishing chances, or they're not creating high enough value scoring chances?
Well, there's a lot of people that use the expected goals numbers as a reason to say that actually things weren't too bad at Leeds. I think there's a lot going on there because there's certain issues that once you start digging into the underlying numbers, they start to rear their head. So the underlying numbers have Leeds roughly in sort of 12th place, I think. But actually, when you start digging into those numbers and you see the effects that different game states can have, so a game state is anything that just influences the way you play. So a red card is a really good example of that. If a team goes down to 10, then they're going to be more likely to defend and not have attacking moments. So that's going to change your underlying numbers. Actually, if we look at Leeds, the thing that really influences them is the amount of goals that they are behind. So I think when I looked at it last, when Leeds are 2 goals down, that's when they generate their best attacking moments, which makes sense, right? When you're 2 down, you do have to go forwards more. The problem is they're getting into these negative game states and they're not being able to get out of them as well. So I do think there's a bit more to it than meets the eye.
I feel that's bad planning, going 2-0 down before you start trying to attack. I feel like that's...
Generally, yes.
Yeah, I think you shouldn't try that. All right, so we know those things now, but they signed all these players to suit this kind of play.
Yeah.
So players like McKennie, Aronson, who else is Christensen? Who else they signed? And does that not mean that has it been bought with another manager in mind? Was it all for Marsch? Is it going to be a trouble now for the players they bought?
Well, I think this comes down to Victor Orta seeing the Red Bull vision as being a vision that could work in the Premier League. And so I think it goes beyond just having Jesse Marsch. The big question is going to be where Leeds go from here if they're going to continue in that sort of mould. But they have brought in a lot of players who suit that style of play. And those are players who are going to be more energetic, going to be able to do the pressing, and maybe less technically able, because we're not talking about possession football here necessarily. We're talking more about being able to generate those chaotic moments. So if you do bring in someone else who isn't going to be playing that kind of football, will there be problems there? Now, I think there is plenty of scope in the rest of the squad to be able to play a little bit more possession football. But I think whoever they appoint, it's going to be really interesting and key to see what Leeds see their future being in a tactical sense.
Because it'll suit those things, right? Yeah, they'll want to keep some of the ball, they'll want to try and have a high press and maybe a counter press, that sort of manager. So the names currently mentioned are the current West Brom manager. Who would he be able to do that sort of thing? Pochettino's sort of somebody who'd be able to do that.
Yeah, and then people talk about Postecoglou as well. I think Corberan, who's the West Brom manager, I think would be an interesting option because he was under Bielsa, when Bielsa was at Leeds. He was one of the assistant managers and he coached the under-23s. But he went away after that and started playing Bielsa ball, but then moved away from that to a more mid-block approach, so being solid in defence and then finding these possessional attacking moves. So that will be an interesting one to see. The others, I think, again, will use high-pressing players, but they will need levels of technicality in their teams as well. So I think whoever Leeds go for, as long as they're not in that Red Bull stream, will be still high-intensity coaches, but with a little bit more of that possession stuff thrown in.
Will Bielsa come back?
I think that's pretty unlikely. I think that it's pretty clear that a lot of bridges were burned when that all went down, so afraid not.
No Bielsa, burned bridges, but Leeds might be on the up without Jesse Marsch. And if you enjoyed John's lovely explanation of all of this, please do subscribe to Tifo IRL. Goodbye!
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.